All right, in our content area for global contemporary, we're going to break it down into sections. And so the screencast is specifically about contemporary architecture. And for this little portion, we only have two images to learn about. But I want to give some general information about contemporary architecture that's going to help you just understand the shifts and the changes, and when kind of grouping architecture into movements and eras, this information is going to be vital to understand the overall like shift from one era to another. So, like we've talked about with installations in global contemporary, a lot is just due again to technology. Technology advancements really changes art because, like we learned with installations, um, the first change was the fact that it brought information to the artist quicker. That it isn't necessarily always about technology advancements in materials, but technology advancements in just like our human understanding, our the information age, and how quickly and globally we are able to be aware of issues that we didn't have privy to before. And so, like that trend, technology has made big changes for architecture as well. But mainly it's because of, again, advancements in technology that are specific to design and materials. So, one big change is how blueprints were created. Now, in our contemporary architecture around the 1980s, we were starting to use computers and computer software to do the architectural blueprints, and not have them drawn out by hand anymore. Programs like CAD not only assisted the architect, but it also would automatically like check for errors, and kind of do a lot of the formulations that an architect would have to kind of was relied upon doing by hand before. So that is a huge advancement, and has allowed then architects' creativity to really push those boundaries. When you have a computer system that is checking for errors and kind of being your backup to let you know if it's feasible or not, then you have that freedom as a designer to really get creative and really kind of be innovative with your designs. So there's computer programs that would also allow designers to use different materials as well. And so this is an advancement in contemporary architecture. We have an array of products that are so much lighter, and by that relief of weight, you're able to do a lot different things with it. Um, we also have products now that are a lot cheaper to make and more energy efficient. So we have just, material advancements are happening in an array of ways. The fact that they're man-made, and they're not using valuable natural resources. They're they're able to be just as strong, or if not stronger, but yet lighter in weight. And then also, how do we work with materials and the concept of being energy efficient? So these kind of new approaches to materials has changed the way architecture has looked. We talked about postmodernism, and contemporary architecture definitely strays away from postmodernism. Contemporary architecture embraces the fact that there is innovation and change, and they really want to stray from anything of history. So mimicking the past and using like kind of a recreation of historical styles is kind of absent in contemporary architecture. It becomes this new thing, and that's something that's embraced in contemporary architecture. Most postmodern paid homage to the history. Remember, it had like a modern spin on it, but it still paid homage, where contemporary architecture is not. They're saying, hey, this is fresh, this is all new, we are inventing, not reinventing, and that's something that they want to embrace. um, the other thing that contemporary architecture is really known for is embracing natural light, and very, very bright, clean interiors. You're going to see a lot of that sense of modern value in architecture. You're gonna be able to feel a lot of that international style, but it's not so kind of static, and it's not so kind of like hospital like. It has that kind of clean international style, but definitely incorporates a lot more curvature, movement. It strays away from symmetry and that kind of like distill ratio, and goes a lot more with like asymmetry and just really unconventional um, systems and designs. So with that in mind, we're going to get to our two examples, which I think are really, really perfect and proper examples of contemporary architecture. Our first one is Image 240. It is the Guggenheim Museum, Bilbao. So there are a few Guggenheim museums. There is one in California. So I think it's really important that you make that distinction. So this one is the Bilbao. It's located in Spain. It was constructed in 1997. The architect is Frank Gehry, who did, the other Guggenheim museums as well. And the materials here, this is, a big part of the innovation: titanium, and then glass and limestone. So I think it's really important that you acknowledge the titanium material here, because that is an example of a material that's extremely strong, but very, very lightweight. So that's an advancement in manufacturing. So a little bit of contextual information. So our architect here, Frank Gehry, he's a Canadian American who is based in California. So he is a kind of LA based, and definitely one of the biggest takeaways that you need from this image is the inspiration behind the design. And it is supposed to resemble a ship of sorts. And it is a huge representation of the site as well. So let's talk about the site. The site is right there. It's a commercial center right there on the water, which is a port. And what's really important is that this commercial center, before this structure was built, was kind of like an area that was kind of dilapidated, really kind of poor in nature. And even though it was a lovely site and a really viable site, it was an area that just was struggling. And so the construction of this Guggenheim Museum is a conscious way that the city wanted to regentrify the area. And that whole concept is called the Bilbao effect, okay, specific to this site. So it revitalized the port of Bilbao, and when you bring this like art museum with this crazy, interesting contemporary design of architecture into this space, what happens is it draws people to it. It increases tourism. Tourism brings money. Then that allows, other businesses to open up that support your tourism. And it's just this domino effect of regentification. And so that it's a direct link to what happened to this area because of this structure. And I do think that that's an important thing to know about this image. And then also the fact that it is structurally inspired by a ship meant to kind of look like a ship that's docked there at the port. And hopefully you can definitely see that abstract reference. So I think those are some of the biggest takeaways that you need to have from this image. Some other details about it, when we talk about form, there's a lot of elements and principles that definitely can be used with this beautiful structure. So, movement, swirling shapes, curvature of lines. You have contrast of the building that's so it's all metal and man-made, and you have that contrast with the natural landscape of the port and of the city behind it. It's irregular, it's asymmetrical, so if you kind of split it in half, the left side and the right side are not evenly balanced. It has just this beautiful movement to it that's kind of repeated over and over again, which also then provides a sense of movement. It is not static at all. When you look at it, it doesn't feel still because your eye kind of swirls around it and follows all those curves and those lines. So it's a very dynamic composition. But then that titanium, that material, really kind of unifies all the stuff that's going on here with this structure. If you took away the material that kind of unifies everything, it would feel a little bit like chaotic. It would feel like there's too much going on, but that titanium really brings it together. So I wanted to give you some close-ups because it was hard to see from your image, but that incorporation of natural light is definitely a huge part of this Guggenheim Museum. So we have just walls, 3, 4 feet or 4 stories tall of just window, just light. And you can see this wonderful steel structure that frames all of the glass. But not only, is it there aesthetically to enjoy views, but it's what actually lights up, a lot of the interior space. And so that's something that's important about contemporary architecture and the use of glass and the use of windows is it's not just a way to see out and enjoy what is outside, but it is definitely used as a way to light up the interior instead of relying on a lot of fluorescent or incandescent type of lighting. So we talked about the medium, definitely glass, titanium walls. We talked about the content and the inspiration, which is it's supposed to resemble a boat or a ship with sails that is, built according to the site. So it's placed next to the water in a port town. And, that is, like I said, definitely conceptually done to kind of pay homage to that site. And the function of it, that it is an art museum located in Spain, and then make sure that you're able to talk about kind of that regentification of that area. And it's important because really in theory, all areas that go through a regentification process, it is usually led by some sort of art movement. So there is a direct connection between art and regentrification of neighborhoods or cities or things like that. Okay, our next image, our second image for this content area is number 249. It's titled The Maxi National Museum of 21st Century Arts. This is located in Rome. The architect is Zaha Hadid, and this was constructed in 2009. It's made from glass, steel, and cement. And this structure is absolutely amazing. It looks like I got a copy of a picture right here, but I wanted you to see it initially from this aerial perspective because, again, a lot of our images that AP provides for us doesn't really help us, see the big picture and see the whole thing. And I think it's important to look at it from an aerial perspective. So it is a huge kind of almost L-shaped structure, and it is nestled, within a city center. And it is a really kind of odd thing to see this extremely contemporary structure that is amidst all of these kind of older traditional buildings, in Rome. And this part right here, okay, I don't know if you can see that. So there's these parts of the building that kind of jet out, and these two right here literally are almost overhangs over this roof. You can see this, kind of terracotta roof right underneath it, which is, really old historic structure. And so to see that juxtaposition of history with, very current contemporary style is a part of the beauty and design of this building. So I really wanted you to be aware of that. I think a lot of times we don't acknowledge the site of architecture as much. And these two contemporary buildings, the site, the location was absolutely vital to the design. And so I want to make sure that you are aware of that for both of these images. All right, so let's get back here. I'm going to quickly get rid of this picture that showed up there. Okay. So the materials and the techniques, it's not anything totally new, but the way that she used it, I think, is really innovative. So the glass, again, for that love of natural light, incorporation of natural light, we're going to see glass that is on the ceiling. And so this is an amazing way that really the entire interior of this structure is lit up by the sun. And so we're going to be able to look at that. And then we have that concrete, cement facade that really gives way to that international style. We also have some areas on the side of the building here, around this corner here, this area that jets out, that has that kind of horizontal banding of windows, that ribbon window that we've talked about with the Villa Savoye. And so we see a lot of that international style there as well. But the function of this place is originally it was designed to be like an Italian kind of center of cultural heritage. And it was originally put out there to, they wanted it to be like a multidisciplinary space for the public. It was going to be a public space, but it wanted to be, the city wanted it to be kind of multifunctional. And so Zaha Hadid really committed to the experimentation and the innovation, of the arts and architecture, and really kind of worked with the plot of land that was available for this space, But ultimately, the function of it became it's mostly another art museum. Now there are other spaces that are used for other things, but it's all kind of fine arts related. Okay, um, Zaha Hadid really has become one of the most notable um, architects in our contemporary time. She was the winner of an international design competition to construct this space. I don't remember, but there were something like 1,200 applicants or design entries that were submitted to fulfill this, this structure. But she has just built so many amazing buildings, and almost everything she's built has won a numerous amount of awards. So she has become very well known for her designs and very prestigious in her discipline. So this has kind of been divided up into two museums. We have Maxi Art and Maxi Architecture. It also, like I said, has some other fine art areas, such as like an auditorium, a performance hall, a cafeteria, a library. But it's very fine arts orientated. The original design actually consisted of buildings being separated. I think it was like 5 separate buildings. And of those 5 kind of separate buildings, only one of the 5 was what was chosen to actually be constructed, but constructed on a larger scale and to house all of the purposes needed for the space. So the pictures of this building is what does it justice. I mean, I feel like when you are able to look at all of the pictures from this beautiful space, like you understand why we're learning about it. And so even though I've included some on the slideshow, I wanted to take a moment and actually go to the website of Zaha Hadid that shows a lot of her accomplishments and her buildings. But she's got a lot of images up here. So I'm just looking at the Maxi Museum of 21st Century Arts. I want to kind of go through these images. So what is amazing about her is her attention to both exterior and interior space. So this is a picture of interior space, and we are looking at stairs. Okay, so all of this black are stairs, and the stairs are covered in this like metal grating, so it's see-through. And the way that the stairs just literally kind of float in space, it makes them look like they're extremely lightweight, like they're floating. Even though they're this like matte black, which is so beautiful contrast up against these, the white interiors, it still feels very light and airy. We have these beautiful concrete kind of beams, but the way that they curve and flow throughout all of the kind of hall spaces and interior spaces makes it feel just like it goes on forever. And then you can see above, the ceiling is glass, which allows all that beautiful natural light. Another image with those gorgeous black stairs. You can see how the stairs are, kind of see-through with metal grating, but then also in parts of the stairs, this white that we're looking at, that is like, that's lit up. Those are lights that are through like, glass that is kind of opaque. So it's just like an illuminating like light, not a bright light. So again, the curvature of these structural beams is just amazing, which follows the entire flow of the space. There's that aerial perspective. Here's a portion that, just really jets out with these large ribbon windows. Another angle. So we still have, these structural pillar systems, which, kind of is a contemporary way to bring like an homage to, a Doric style column. This is one of the like performance halls. So you can see how inspired she is by modern art in general, and the concept of working with a lot of like geometry and line, and kind of just, working with how the elements and principles go together. I mean, it's very simple, it's very less is more concept, but extremely elegant. Here is another outside kind of aerial view, which allows you to see in space like the dimension of it. And like I told you, being surrounded and bookend by all these like historical buildings is really part of the allure of the place. So this is a great photo because I want you to see here, so these kind of repeated parallel horizontal lines. So those are louvers, because remember, this whole ceiling is glass. And if you didn't deflect the light in some way, it would actually be too much. And so she's created this permanent louver system in the structure that allows the light to kind of be filtered. And so it's softer and kind of easier. But again, it's part of that design. So keeping with that line, that use of line and repetition has really just made this building quite an original. The stairs, I just love them so much that they're like stairs and hallways that float around. It kind of reminds me of like the Harry Potter stairs, where I feel like they're so light and airy that they're just going to kind of shift up and move and change, where they connect. Okay. So hopefully this has really helped, looking at the slideshow, just give you a true sense of both the interior and exterior of this building. And I think by just being able to embrace what we're talking about is just going to help all this information retain. So in terms of form, we talked a lot about it, but walls that flow and melt into one another, it's dynamic interior space, floating staircases, contrast of color with the black and the white, a very bright space which reflects natural lighting. It's an asymmetrical exterior that also lends for asymmetry, interior. You have this gorgeous harmonious combination between geometric and organic, because you do have all of these curves and asymmetry. The building, is like a composition of oblong tubes that are overlapping, intersecting, piling up on one another. It is reminds you of like a big massive transport infrastructure, like a subway system or something like that. But when reading about Zaha Hadid, she said that her original inspiration for the design of this building was actually a river delta. So river delta is, when the river forks and splits, and that was actually her original inspiration, and that she based her design off of that. And so I think when you see that aerial perspective of it, you can really see how her inspiration is pretty prevalent. So the innovation that we have here is the materials, not just what they are, but how they're used. So those very thin concrete beams that curve, the fact that we're using glass is not new, but the fact that the glass is the ceiling, and then that the louvered kind of blinds that are part of the infrastructure to deflect the light. So again, the use of the materials and then the enhancement of the materials is what is very innovative. Okay. And then this is just a really great shot of the louvered blinds to deflect light. Okay, so that ends our section on contemporary architecture. Hopefully you enjoyed the styles of that architecture, and we will continue on in another screencast.